All right, let's do this. Memo. I'll be splitting this into 4 parts. Number 1, tracing speed. Number 2, conversion to letters and like the techniques you use. Number 3, decision making. Number 4, deductive reasoning, as I call it. I'll be spending a lot of time on deductive reasoning because I think that's the really advanced part, and that's what will make you fast. Although I have some tips here and there for the other parts. We're gonna start out just with tracing speed. Tracing speed by itself is quite the term is self-explanatory. How fast you can trace around the cube. And it's something a lot of people struggle, when they're first learning 3-blind, because you have to know where the pieces are. But now I assume you're around probably 20 range, and you know where the letters are, and you're just looking to, up your tracing speed a tiny bit, but you may not know exactly how, because it's not just like, oh, I need to get more used to tracing. You know your letters at this point. Where should I go with this? What I wrote down is something called the economy of motion, and just in general what that means: reducing, tilting, and unwanted movements. As an example, I have my harmonica here to try to prove my point. So let's say I'm going to play a D flat major scale. Hopefully that's not too loud. When you're trying to play fast, and normally this will be on a piano and on a melodica, but this is all I have for now. You want, in music especially, you want to be using the least amount of motion possible to be able to play as fast as possible, but also just to not be wasting energy in places. And there's a lot of texts and stuff about this online, about the economy of motion, and it's not only used in music, it's also used in stuff like work. You want to be spending the least amount, let's say in a sport, you don't want to be doing a bunch of unnecessary movement, because they're if you're running and you're wasting energy, well, you're going to be able to run for less time. If you're working on something and you're spending a bunch of energy in a place you shouldn't be, your output will be less than it could be. So we can apply this to cubing. So on the piano, okay, let's do an example. We have D flat major scale. If I play it like this, that's a lot of movement here with this waving shit, man. You can't do that, and that's why as you get better at piano and at instruments, you'll know to use less movement, and it'll look less awkward too. So maybe you'll play something like this. Now I still suck at piano, but I just want to do that to try to explain. So how can we apply this to cubing? Well, when you're memoing, you want to be reducing the tilting you're doing. And I'll have Scramble to show an example. This isn't really important that you follow along. There will be Scrambles that it's important that you follow along, but for this one it's not important. Let's just say I'm memoing, and I go here. I have to look at BDR, I have to look here, I have to look here, here. There. That's a lot of tilting, man. If you use something called 2-color memo, you're able to reduce this tilting. That's one way. So here, I know here, this is going to go right here, right? And just by these 2 colors, I'm able to go here, and that one, I know it goes here. This goes here, there, right? And when you're memoing, you'll be tilting a lot less, and therefore, you'll be saving time, if anything, because that's what this is all about. So 2-color memo is important, but it's kind of only applicable to corners. Okay, wait, I made a mistake, whatever. Let me solve this. You see, you don't have to do pure 2-color memo. You could take tiny peek, oh, I see this sliver of orange here, and I'm able to deduce on these. But you just want to be consciously making an effort to reduce the amount of tilting you're doing in memo, because that will save time. And look, none of these things are going to be shave 2 seconds off instantly. These are all tiny things, but all these fractions of seconds will add up, and eventually you'll be saving those types of 2 seconds on your memo. Okay, so we have two-color memo for corners, and that helps a lot. And, you know, it makes your solves a bit more enjoyable if you're not going all over the place. But at the same time, some people like doing that. I just think that reducing the amount of tilting you're doing is very important. Now, for edges, you can't really do two-color memo, but you can reduce the tilting. Well, I mean, in edges, you are doing two-color memo because there's only two colors on an edge. But you can reduce the amount of tilting you're doing. Obviously, like if you're going to look at BD, you want to have a quick motion. And it sounds stupid, but you want to have a quick motion. And also, this is very theoretical, and like, I don't know if I actually do this, but let's say you memo RD, and you have to go BD. You do this, right? You're going to tilt from here to here. You're not going to go do this and then like tilt back there. That makes no sense. So you want to have that type of thing. I don't know if I actually do that, but I'm thinking that now, and it would make sense to do that, you know? Like memo, I don't know how to explain this, but you know, if you have something here, just go like shortest possible route from point A to point B. Yes, that's what I mean. And there's also something I've been trying a bit, which is one color edge memo. And this is when you, if you know you've solved like everything of one color and there's something else, or everything but two, you'll be able to just see the one edge with one color and know it's that one. So this is kind of stupid, but we're going to go to example number 1, Scrambles in the description, to explain my point, because I suck at using words. Anyway, we have, okay, well, corners are kind of a meme, but we're just going to flip these two, go here, like break to here, go there, back to there, and then twist this. Doesn't matter. Just get corners done. I'll do that now since there's no parity. We don't have to worry about it. So get corners done however you want to. I want to show this technique in edges. We have here, 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 here. And then we have like this kind of 3-flip thing. Not 3-flip. A floating cycle, except the buffer is flipped, so you can't really float there. But I know that this piece goes here because I've kept track of the pieces I'm solving in Memo, and I know these two are solved. So it can only be either LU, this piece or this piece. And since I see UL is here, this has to be this piece. So I go into exec. Sorry, oh my god, my turning sucks. Okay, so we get to this point, and in Memo, I kind of visualize these solved, and I'm like, okay, this one has to go here, and this has to go there. So you don't have to look back. And it's a mini, tiny thing that'll probably not save much time, but getting the habit of it is, I guess it's important. And I'm not sure if I actually do this in solves either, but I think I do. Yeah. It saves a tiny bit of time. But I'm going over absolutely everything in this video that I could think of while I was doing cited solves. So that's one of the things. Now, still on tracing speed, you want to have what I call a constant speed of Memo, or at least try as much as possible to have a constant speed. So what I mean by this is don't look at a pair, say the pair, move on. You want to be constantly tracing while saying the pairs. And I think the best way to explain this would be you look at a pair, and as you're saying the pair in your mind, you go on to the next one, and you have this constant flow of saying the pair while you're tracing. So I'll try to do an example of this, just with the hand scramble again, because my letter scheme is different than everybody else's anyway, and you won't be able to follow along. But I just want to show what I mean when tracing. So if I have PR, I look at PR, and then as I'm saying pair, whatever my fucking word is, I go BG, and then as I'm saying bug, QB, whatever. It's hard to do, but you get the point. As I look at the pair, I'm saying, I look at the pair, I say the word as I'm looking at the next one, and you continue with that stream. So pair bug, yeah, okay. Okay, I could have floated there, whatever. Then same thing for edges, obviously. Whim judge, if I agree, yeah. me saying what I'm actually doing is kind of pointless, but you get the point. Okay, sorry for stalling, but my brain isn't working well today. Whatever. So you try as much as possible to have this constant flow of I look at a pair and I memo, I say the word in my mind, or I say the word out loud, however your memo system works, as you're looking at the next one. Because then it'll be reducing pauses first of all, and you'll have this constant speed, which is important. Now, this constant speed and this constant memo, you'll have this kind of in your brain, and you'll be able to play it back as you're doing exec. And I'm not sure if this actually helps, but it may help, with like reducing pauses. If you have the words going like tuk 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 in your mind as you're executing, it may be a bit easier to have a good flow. So that's about it for tracing speed. When it comes to conversion of the cube to letters and like the techniques used surrounding that, I'm going to talk a bit about using a mix of visual, audio, and images. So, when you start out, like 8-minute 3 blind singles, you're probably using only images for everything. And then eventually you'll switch to audio for edges and images for corners. And then maybe you'll stop actually visualizing what you're memoing in corners, because that can be slow. So as you get faster, the meaning of your memo matters less. And you want to find this middle line in between retainability and speed. So you can usually get away with saying like gibberish in your memo and remembering it. And that's the point I'm at now, is that my audio corners, like, they don't form a sentence, a sensical sentence. They don't form a sensical sentence. And it's just like, it's fast because I can just memo the corners with whatever random words I do, and I still am able to recall that when I get to corner exec. But this isn't just from having a good memory or whatever. It's also from relying on, maybe there's one letter pair in there that I can hook onto and remember that going into corners. Or what I do sometimes is, as I'm memoing, you kind of think of the quality of the comm. Like, if I get this comm, that's ridiculously fast. I'm like, and I get the corners, I'm like, I remember I have this really fast comm. And then usually that can lead to me remembering everything. Like, I have this stupid comm, which is UBL FUL. I'm like, I remember I'll have that because I was thinking of that during memo. And it's hard to explain, but during memo, like, I'm thinking of, is this corner solve going to be shit or is it going to be amazing? And that usually helps me remember it too. And then there's something else, which is kind of not doing visual, but having visual being a part of your either audio or image memo, where you kind of remember the path you took to trace around the cube. This helps too, and I'm not sure whether people do this, but I just find that if I remember the path I took, it's a lot easier for me to remember the actual letters. And also, if I'm remembering what pieces I'm solving, or it's like, if I'm in exec and I know, okay, LD, sorry, this is my scuffed letter scheme again, LD, AX, and BS, and it comes to, like, I have to go, my last pair is BDR, UBR. I'm not going to have to guess which one of the 440 or 378 in corners. I'm not going to have to guess which one of the 378 pairs it is. I'll just remember, like, it was one of these two, and I think that's maybe, like 9 possibilities. And then I remember, I had to go back to UBR anyway, so that will come almost instantaneous to me, this last pair here. So to take out of this, you want to find the middle line in between retainability and speed. And something else to talk about with this retainability stuff is that you want to reduce the amount of syllables you use. And first I thought it wasn't a big thing, but then I realized as I was memoing faster, I was actually shortening the words, even though like something like, I don't know, the word Australia, I don't know why that's in my memo, but I was saying like just awe, and I still kept the image of Australia in my head. but I was just saying, oh, or like just the feeling that pair gave to me. Yeah, something else. In corners, like different pairs give me different feelings, and then I'm able to remember those feelings going into exec, or things like muscle memory. For some reason, when I'm memoing corners, the neurons or whatever in my brain that are responsible of, oh, the muscle memory for like this comm, they're getting triggered. And then when it comes to corners, I'm like, okay, well, that was triggered, I'll do that. You know, something like that. It's hard to explain. I say this all the time, but it's hard to explain because my brain, you know, it just works. Let's see. So I was talking about syllables. Yeah. You want to reduce the amount of syllables you use if possible, especially in edges. You want to be using maximum, like, you know, it's a sound, so you want to be doing maximum 1 syllable per sound. And I'll talk about letter quads a bit later. But actually, you know, why not now? Letter quads in edges. This is when, you know, not letter quads as in 5 style, but pairing 4 letters together to make a sound rather than 1. So like if I have R-O-S-H, instead of ro-sh, it would be rosh, you know? And if you're using this like constant speed thing that I talked about earlier, where you're memoing as you go on, as you trace, you'll be able to see these 4 pairs and make it into 1 sound instead of making it into 2 separate sounds. And this that helps a tiny bit with just like speed in general, but also remembering. And if you bank on partial, what I was talking about, partial visual memo, where you're remembering the quality of the comm and how the comm makes you feel, there'll be no issue with confusing sounds. Like for me, this comm, some people do regripless. Sorry. Oh my god. Okay. This comm, okay, the inverse, sorry. Let me get this set up. This is VY, and for some reason, I say Vi for this, but then also for this comm, VI, I say Vi too. But I'm able to distinguish in between them because there's a very, very different feeling inside me when I memo this, and I'm like, okay, well, there's gonna be this annoying whatever, and oh, fast comm. So even though it's like the same sound, and I should probably work on that, like I could do V for VI, and VY could be Vi, but that distinguish, or just having the different feelings in the comms will help you do that, along with tracing where you're going and remembering the general path you took. So for letter quads, yeah, letter quads will just speed up your memo a bit, and you should try to implement them where you can in edges. And obviously, if you have like 4 consonants in a row, you may not be able to do the letter quad thing. But if you just try to fit some in here and there, it'll speed your solves up for sure. Yeah, so for corners, I was talking about like giving almost nicknames or shortening the letters of shortening the sounds of the different pairs you're memorizing. So obviously, or there'll be some pairs that are just like 1 syllable long because you do that, like LP, lip, RM, rum. You don't have to change those, but if you have something like, let me think. Okay, I don't use this, but if you have KM and you're memorizing like camera, maybe you could just do cam if you don't have a friend called Antonio Cam, obviously. And then for other things like, it's hard to think, but let me try to find like EN. I don't know, if you memorize that as like, oh, the English language, well then you could just do like ing, and you'll be able to remember that if you bank on the things I said, like how the comm makes you feel, and just like the general path you took around, you'll be able to remember this. And then you'll have kind of what some people call audio corners. I like to just call it gibberish corners, where you're having like random sounds that still have somewhat of a meaning, and then you'll be able to remember what those sounds were through things like Echoic Memory, I think it's called, where you play the sound back that you made in memo back in your head, and you'll be able to remember the letters with no issue, even though the words you're saying may have no real sense in, like, you know, the English language or whatever language you memo in. but they'll have a somewhat sense to you, not only based on the words, because a lot of people bank only on the words, but I find it's also a good idea to bank, like I said, how the com makes you feel. Just like, oh, like this ing kong, en. This com sucks, man. This com's terrible. And when I memo it, I remember this com sucks. And then I get to it, and I'm like, okay, it's the com that sucks, and I'm able to do it. So, to recap, I said this a million times, but you have shortened words, bank on, and bank, I mean rely on how the com makes you feel, and you can have a tiny bit of like an image in your mind if you want. Just don't make it slow you down, actually. So how the com makes you feel, tiny bit of an image, and also the path you took around the cube. Yeah, so that's 3 things that I rely on to make my memo fast enough, and I'm able to save time based from the shortened syllable sounds. And then one more thing you can use is that if you're tracing and you get to a parity target in corners, you shouldn't have to actually memorize the parity target. You should be able to do that visually if you're if you're decent, you know. It may be hard at first, I guess, but you'll be able to get used to it. Same thing with stuff like if you have an LTCT, not necessarily when you know the Al2, but if you have something like this, you should just be able to memorize, just like see like MH for me, and be able to know that, oh, I have to do this or whatever to solve it. Oh, that's not what I have to do. Whatever. But I also have something else that has to do with that, and I just need to see in my notes if I put it down. Okay, no. Well, what you can do is if you have an LTCT, like this. For me, that's LAY. Instead of doing like, oh, LA the city, and then memorize like Y, I don't know what Y would mean, but I could just memorize the 3 together, lay. And I know lay is like a type of chip or something, but you don't necessarily have to make that link to a type of chip. You could just remember the sound. And if you have done corners right, you'll know that, oh, there's just these 2 pieces left. What did I memorize for that? And it'll come right back to you. And you know that LAY, that specific combo of parity plus com, I remember that's fast. And when I get to it, it almost comes instantaneous to me that I had to do that specific parity plus com combo. But sometimes you don't even have to memorize like what the twist is or this 3-letter combo thing. You can just see, okay, well, this is my last target, that's the twist, boom, do it right away. I talked about echoic memory a bit and the playback, but I'll talk about it a bit more. So when you're memorizing, often people rely on images, like I said, but I find myself relying a lot on saying the memo out loud, and then playing the memo back in my head. And I'm not sure if it's something a lot of people can do, but you know, some people when listening, I feel like a lot of people actually, when listening to music, they're able to like later on in the day say, oh, this was a specific song, and like hear the music perfectly in their head. Like I could not necessarily in key, but you know, just like hear the same drum pattern or whatever. If you're listening to something like, I'm trying to think of like a song everybody would listen to, I don't know, Ain't No Mountain High Enough. I'm able to know like the chorus, hear the chorus in my head without having to actually listen to it digitally, if that makes any sense. So with memo, it could be the same thing. You say it out loud, and then you're like, okay, well, what did I say 8 seconds ago? And you play that back as you're solving the cube, and it'll help you obviously remember what comms you have to do. And then that combined with everything else I talked about, there should be less issues with recall, and you'll be able to do memo fairly fast. So that's it for like the conversion to letters and the techniques you use regarding that. Now, hopefully this will be shorter, but I'll talk about decision making in memo and just not spending too much time making, you know, deciding on things. Something I would like to say is that for me, finding a solution is more important than finding the best solution. So if I, you know, cycle break into a column that was part of a floating cycle, you know, it's not the optimal solution, but I had a solution, and that's what matters. You don't necessarily have to find the best thing. So sometimes it's better just to go with your gut instinct on a cycle break or whatever, even if it's not necessarily the best choice, because you'll be saving time in memo by not, you know, trying to do what I call mental gymnastics and trying to go all over the place, finding, oh, is this a cycle? Is this a floating cycle or not? And that type of stuff. For cycle breaks, I think something very important is to develop defaults. And what I mean by this is, if I get like this, if my buffer is on DR, I know right away I'll be going to either RU, this whatever, FL, UB, because those are all really fast, or like BL. I know my defaults for that, and when I get to that, I'll be able to say, okay, what pieces have I solved already? And I'll talk about making a mental image of the pieces you solved already, probably a bit during my whatever, the deductive reasoning section. But if you keep, sorry, let me turn off my computer. If you keep track of the pieces you're solving during memo, these cycle breaks will come almost naturally. Like, you'll be able to have an instinct of where to break right away without like overthinking it or anything. And this type of like automation will make you a lot faster, or I don't know, a lot faster, but it'll definitely shave off time, because it's less time spent thinking and more time spent doing, you know, as they say. Yeah, so I said, knowing what pieces are available to be broken to. You shouldn't be having to look around the entire cube. Oh, have I gone to this piece already? But if you're fast, it shouldn't be an issue. So I think that's it for cycle breaks. It's just, you know, developing a default piece you break to. And you want these defaults to be fast. You don't want to have like stupid bad columns that you default to. That's why I think that having a lot of people, or from what I've heard, some people do, like, if they reach something, they'll say, okay, is UBL solved? No, break there. Okay, if it is, break here, break here, break here. I think it's a lot better to do on a piece-by-piece basis, because you'll be able to force faster stuff on average. And it's not too hard to come up with a mental, like, it doesn't even have to be a written list. You could just have a mental list of defaults where you go, and this mental list will develop automatically as you do solves anyway. So that's it for cycle breaks. Now, alternate pseudo-swapping, this is really, really short. You just want to get good at remembering what swaps go with what parity, and being able to just do that on the fly in edges, and remember, okay, well, for, okay, well, UBR, whatever, RDF, you want to know, okay, well, I'll be swapping these two. And you don't have to spend any time thinking about what pieces you actually want to swap. It'll just be an instinct. And developing this like instinct for everything, I think, is really important in memo, because you'll be able to have more automation. Still not robotic. Like, you'll have creative solutions, but you'll still have like an instinct of where to go with those solutions, and you'll have to spend less time like thinking about whatever the fuck you're doing, you know. And this works for any level you're at. If you're just using UFR, you want to just get good at knowing, well, okay, I'll be swapping these two if there's parity, and I'll be doing whatever. I'll be breaking into twists, for example. And by breaking into twists, I mean like a twist plus parity. Breaking into twists is something else. Or breaking into flips too. You want to get good at just being able to do that, even though that should be during exec. But you don't. You get the idea. You want to get good at doing advanced solution stuff. Whatever level you're at, though. You just want to get good at, at being able to find solutions quickly and fairly automatically, while still keeping them creative. Okay. So for decision making, onto deductive reasoning, as I call it. In simpler words, this is yeet the blindfold on as soon as you have enough info to start to solve. And even if you don't necessarily have the letter pairs for everything, you can still like get going with the solve. And I'll have many examples for this. So stay tuned, I guess. Okay, so it's a bit darker. Sorry, I decided to film this in two parts after essentially losing my mind trying to explain everything, and I was doing a really bad job. So this is, I guess, part 2. We're talking about deductive reasoning, that I like to call it. Using time in exec instead of using time in memo, because if you're just brainlessly spamming algs in exec, you might as well be using that time to think of what you're doing, what you'll be doing, or like, I think an example of it would be like improvising a set of moves in exec instead of thinking and making letter pairs for that same set of moves in corners. And we'll look into it. It'll become a bit more clear. I think, though, the easiest example of this deductive reasoning is, I guess you know when a cycle ends. Like, if you're anywhere decent at 3-bind, you'll know when you're done tracing. And when you first started, you may have traced, like, back to the 8-minute 3-bind single days. You may have traced the cube like 7 times without realizing you hit your buffer over and over and over again. And, by now you should be remembering where your buffer is. Not necessarily orientation, and we'll talk about that, but you should remember where your buffer is and when you hit it and when to cycle break again. And you already have that deductive reasoning, except you can extend your knowledge and extend what you're able to do, and I'll talk about that. So, back to using time in exec instead of using time in memo, I think an easiest example of this would be like visualing small floats is probably the easiest thing. And with it, Scramble number 2, you'll see this, so follow along. So for corners, we have here to here. Corners don't actually really matter, but I'll still go over it anyway. Corners, we have here to here. Break, if I saw this, I would break here, so I might as well go here, here to here. And we have here, all over here, and then here, back to here. So I think 4 algs or something, I don't know. No parity, so we don't have to swap. I'll go to UB right away because you have it solved. Here, 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 and then whoa, I hit UB. Now it's time to float UR, but so many pieces are solved. So what I would do is I take one glance at this and I already know what comm it is. Put on the blindfold, do the comm, and then do the rest of the solve. Instead of finishing off the UF cycle, okay, go to UR, this is YH, and then putting in the blindfold. See, that's a small time, I guess time waste, and it's a time save if you just visual right away. And it may seem insignificant, but it starts to add up. So you do that, and then you go on and do the rest of your solve. So like with these small floats, usually it's 1. Just visual it, put the blindfold on. I don't know how much time it's actually saving, but you're still doing yourself a favor. If there's 2, if it's a floating thing and there's 2 algs, normally you should be able to visual it, although sometimes you may just default to using letter pairs. That's fine too. But if you're able to use just visual for both of them, often you're able to do it really, really fast and maybe even save something like, I don't know, a second or half a second. That's still crazy. That's still a lot of time save when you're trying to when you're at like a point where you're grinding for every single second. You're looking for any tiny amount of time to be saved. That is very important. So visualing something like small floats can actually save a lot of time. But it's just a basic example of, instead of using your time in memo to do letter pairs, you're using time in exec to just essentially just not fucking around, So then into corners, we memoed this, right? Okay, don't judge me for that, Alex, please. So visual small floats. That's pretty much it for that part, and it's a good example. But now let's move on to something a bit bigger. And this is improvising, or in other words, doing stuff on the fly in execution to save time during memo. I don't know if this makes sense. We'll do many examples, and I'll show you how this works. So, example number 3, or scramble number 3. This is a case where there's a 2E, and you'll do that. Whatever, I'll show you. So for corners, I'm just going to go here, here, here to here, 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 and then this flip. It's not a great corner scramble, but you live with it at a certain point. In edges, here to here, here to here, here to here, here, here. Then, oh no, 2E, 2E. Instead of going, okay, well this is V, this is P, and then making 2 letter pairs, I'm going to put on the blindfold right away and improvise on those 2 pairs when I get to it, because that's something I'm able to do with my knowledge of blind solving. And this will probably save, half a second again, which is not insignificant. So put on the blindfold, start exec. Again, don't judge me for my columns, please. Get to this point. Now we have so many options. We can go here, here. There's 4 options you can do for this 2E, 2E. And I think you're not always going to get the best option. You still want to not just you don't want to default right away to something. You still want to consider, but if you can see something fast, just take it, go with it. So here I would probably do I do dr there, and then that com, which is brdf. Anyway, see, you were able to save. If this was an actual solve, I would have saved time in Memo, because I would have just put the blindfold on right away. And then for corners, this thing. Okay, well, I didn't notice I solved UFR, so I would just go like that. Okay. I'm going to switch to the Tengyun because my GTS is not feeling good right now. Okay, scramble number 4. This is something called a 2E, 2E prime I saw recently. Somebody gave it that name, and I like it because it's what it is a 2E, 2E, except you have a flipped edge, and we'll get there. So for corners, I would go here to here, 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 whatever, and then this LTCT case that I know, and it doesn't matter, but we're gonna swap UFUR, and for edges, I would go here, 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 and if we're gonna talk about I talked about letter quads, audio quads maybe is a better term because there's no actual meaning to it. DIRT for me, instead of doing, I guess die rat, which has a meaning, but I wouldn't give it a meaning. Instead of doing die rat, I would do dirt here. And since I'm tracing so fast, my brain would be able to process that and make a letter quad instead of a 2 letter pairs, and there'd be a slight time save there. So, wait, okay. Dirt, and then Wim Zav. In a case WM XV, that's not great for letter quad, so I'd do 2. And then this is it's supposed to go RU, but my buffer's there. And now I have this ugly thing. And instead of going, okay, I'm going to go IGFU. Sorry for my scuffed letter scheme once again, but instead of going actually determining 2 pairs, I put the blindfold on, and I just remember this sort of red and then white here, and I would be able to make a decision, or I'd be able to come up with something. So if I go through the solve, cancel. Another way to think of this is it's a 2E, 2E prime, because your buffer is flipped if you keep track of it, and we'll talk about keeping track of it. But I know my buffer is flipped, so I know if I shoot it somewhere, I'll just have to remember one color, and then it'll have to go to the other side to which I did not shoot it. If that makes sense, I don't know. But go here, and then I remember that this is red, so this will have to go to FR. But since I put the buffer flipped, I'm going to have to go to DF, and that would be able to be improvised easily. And then corners. No, wait. This is my favorite LTCT. Did I forget it? It's the Tengyun. I hate the Tengyun. What is it? Yes. No. Yes. Okay. And then for this LTCT, which I did not forget, of course, how could I forget this amazing LTCT? But you do that and solve over. Very fun. I have another 2e example, but I think I'll do it. Example number 5. I don't want to screw up the whole numbering system, so I'll do it anyway. So for this, I would probably shoot UBR because this looks fast here, and then, oh, okay, that's ugly, but whatever. We're ending with LDF parity, so we're going to do UF-UR swap. Let me focus there. And then for edges, here to here, 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 and then the 2e is these two and then these two. So I put on the blindfold right away. That's an important part because you don't need to determine letter pairs because that's a waste of time. So I put on a blindfold. I go through whatever this is. I already forgot. Okay, there. And here I have the option. I have 4 options. I could either go UL, LU, LB, or BL thing, whatever. I'm not good with sing master notation, I think is what it's called. So here I think the best option would be going here to here and then here back to there, like that. And if I had a cube that didn't suck, I would be faster at that. But I think that was the best option because it's for gripless, you know, fast. Then in corners, doesn't. Corners don't matter for now. But when I talk about something else, they will. So I guess stay tuned again. Yeah, so corners, wait, yeah, okay, this is the point where I talk about corners. You didn't have to stay tuned for too long. This is example number 6. And there's also a cool edge thing in it from what I see on my notes. So we have here to here, here to here, here back to here. Yeah, and then that completes the cycle, except we have this annoying swap. So instead of going, okay, what is this letter, what is this letter, what is this letter, and doing like for me that's H-O-H, instead of doing that, I would just keep a mental image, I guess visually memorize this and say, okay, I'll get to that. I'll get to that when we'll cross that bridge when we get there. That expression. And if you think about this is kind of like parity from DFL, except ain't nobody got time for that, memorizing algs for that type of parity. So usually I just do com plus parity. What's cool is that you can do this from any buffer and find the best pseudo swap for that. But and like do I think what I call dynamic shifting, or no, dynamic alternate pseudo swaps in edges, and there's some cool stuff you can do there. I don't know, that's for another time, but you just visual this and you move on to edges right away. And then for edges, here, 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 and then, well, I mean, since you're visualing this, it's like you only have 3 corner algs, in Memo at least. Like you only have it's like it's a 3 alger for corners, but this annoying thing you'll have to deal with an exec. But still, that's still a time save for Memo, obviously. So here, no, okay, here, edges, that has to go here, 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 and then I haven't talked about this yet, but I kept track of where my buffer went, so I knew I put the buffer here, and then we went back to it, so now I can float. And that's actually what we'll talk about next, is keeping track of where your buffer goes. But we have DF now. Since I only did 3 columns, I would start doing this with letters. LX for me. But then I realized that this is a 2E, and at this point, again, I could put on my blindfold right away, and just visual the 2E and improvise it, and I would do that. So for LX, that, and then for the 2E, let me explain, here to here, here, back to there. And I don't have to memorize any letters for that, so again, a time save. And for edges, right, and then for corners, this thing, whatever you use for these logs. But then you get to this point and you have to decide on a parity plus, no, com plus parity combo. And usually I do this com H or FDL BDL, I think, and then this parity. But I think I just thought of something better. This makes me so happy because this is the worst swap in corners, and I'd always done something stupid. But what we could do, you do a parity shift, and then go back there, and it'll be regripless, except with the rotation at the start. It'll be beautiful. But before that, let me just talk about when there's awkward swaps in corners. When it's a swap like with a buffer, like UBR here, well, you just set up that parity target, considering, well, assuming you know full floating. If not, well, I guess you can use the same strategy as this, where you just put on the blindfold right away. But assuming you use full floating, you'll just, with everything, you'll set up a swap, and, well, I don't know if full floating implies the, DFR parity Alex do. In that case, I'm cheating, but if you know, where was I? If you don't know these Alex, and I never learned them because they seem awkward to me, and I just wanted to get solving once I finished full floating. I didn't feel like learning more parity Alex, so I didn't include these, or I didn't learn them. And for all the swaps except, I guess, one, this is a cool swap you can do, which is it's a setup to JPerm, which swaps these two, and it's with UFUR, so it's even easier to set up. But RD prime R2, whatever, figured out to JPerm. But for this, I don't know anything, and usually I have for most cases with D layer, I have a com plus parity setup that I'll always go to because I've done them so many times. And if you're improvising these two and you haven't gotten to that point where it's second nature, you'll have to come up with it on the fly. But for me, I already know which one to go to here. And that's why I was able to, well, that's why it makes it even easier to put on blindfold, because you know what you're going to do. You don't have to memorize the letters. So with that out of the way, I think normally what I do is this and then rotate to this parity. But I think I just found something better on right here. So rotate, cancel. Okay, that just made my day. Yes. I've struggled with that case for so long, and there's probably a DFL alg that solves it, but when it comes to complex parity, I'm very happy I found that. Anyway, that was a lot of gibberish, or not gibberish, but banter. No, not banter. What's the word? There was a lot of I went on talking about nothing, whatever. Okay. Another case where there's a corner swap and you could just put on the the equivalent of putting on the blindfold in edges to corners is just moving on to edge memo. So the second case in corners that I found where you can do that is there's one. What I talked about is just if you have one parity target, just visualing that and moving on to edges, but I talked about it already. Another case is, I don't have an example scramble for this, but it's when you have a pure 2C, 2C without parity. If there's some 2C, 2Cs, not many, but some, the alg too, like this, which is a triple sexy, or other setups to triple sexy, like this one. Okay. But this one, you don't know the optimal or whatever 2C, 2C for it, so just do two comms. And in this case, what you want to do is do, what I would do is go here to here and then there back to there. But you don't have to memorize the letters for this, because you could just improvise it on the spot if you just keep a mental image of what pieces are where. So I would just move on to edges after this. Oh wow, edges are already solved, and two all the corners. No. If this is an actual solve and edges were messed up, I would memorize all the edges, put on the blindfold, do edges, do corners up until this point, and then even though I didn't memorize pairs for this, I'd be able to find two comms that work for that, stop the timer, good time. Okay, that's a whole mouthful. But now let's move on to keeping track of where your buffer is. and more importantly, keeping track of the orientation of your buffer. And this allows you to know when to float, but also to deduce some other stuff, like deducing flips. Okay, and keeping, I'm just looking at my notes, sorry. Yeah, so knowing when to float and deducing flips is probably it. But I have many examples for this, so number 7, I'll head into it now. Corners, we have here, 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 here. Okay, yeah, and keeping track of your buffer, it's a lot easier in edges, and that's mainly where I'm going to talk about it. In corners, it's hard to do because there's 3 sides to corner, and let's say you have a twisted buffer, like you land on maybe the green piece, that's your buffer, and you have to put it somewhere, but it's hard to keep track. I haven't found a consistent way, and I'll let you know if I do find a consistent way, but if you put it somewhere, it's hard to keep track of where the yellow sticker is, or the U-face sticker, I guess more generally. It's hard to keep track of that, so in corners it's harder to do. I guess you can do it if you have, and I do this a bit, if you land on the the U-face sticker, and you put it somewhere, and you return to that same spot, then you'll be able to, then you keep track of where it is, and you'll be able to know when to float. Other than that, sometimes you just either have to guess, or take the hit and do, like 2 columns instead of 1 floating column, and that'll happen sometimes. And I haven't found a great way around that yet, but maybe there is. We'll see. Anyway, knowing when to float. So here, like for example, I'm putting the green sticker up here, and it's like, okay, well, where is the yellow sticker? And maybe if I got really good at 2-color memo, maybe that could help. I don't know, but it's hard to really visualize where the yellow sticker would be. Maybe if you visualize like, and then the yellow sticker is here. I don't know, but it's hard. And for the sake of speed and everything, I think it's better sometimes just to take the hit and do 2 columns instead of floating. But okay, buffer here. But it's also, I don't know, okay. Buffer here, keep track that I put it there. Bam, 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 bam. And then that completes the cycle. That's a lot of talking about nonsense, sorry. So then for corners, we go here to, I have to focus, and I can't remember. Okay, here to here, here. Cycle break, I would probably cycle break to UR, even though there may be a better option. But I go to UR, and then when I put that up in UR, you have to know that you're putting this sticker, which is the buffer, I guess the sticker that's on the buffer, but not the buffer sticker. So FU, not as in fuck you, as in the sticker on the front, and U-face. FU goes to UR. And then that means that this sticker, the actual UF sticker, will be on RU. So if you come back to that, you'll know you'll be able to float. So you go here, and then I may have just met, okay, well, I didn't find an optimal solution, but here. Go here, here again. And then okay. So go to here, here to here. Then we hit here the UR, but remember that this is like the sticker, the FU sticker. And then so we have to remember that that's kind of like the wrong way. I put it wrong way into here, which means that the actual buffer sticker will be here, but then this goes to here and it comes back here, and we know the cycle is completed. Why I was hesitant a bit is because I saw this forms a closed cycle, and then this also forms a closed cycle, so you lose an alg to, you lose an alg because you could have floated. But then again, like I talked about, finding a solution is better than finding the best solution. Or finding a solution fast is better than finding the best solution. And in this case, that's what happened. But I went here to there, then there, and it just happened like that. And then we have this floating U-face, or no, floating UB cycle. And so, like I talked about, you could just put on the blindfold right away, do that, without memorizing the letter pair, then move on here. right? And then there. And just like that, you're able to keep track of where your buffer is. Okay, and then corners, I don't think there's anything special here, so I'll just do them. Okay. Scramble number 8. We have here to here, here to here, here to here, and then the cycle ends at UBR. Nothing special in corners. Edges, we go here to here, and then that's the pseudo buffer, and then I will put that in UR, so we have to remember that, again, the UR sticker, or the UF sticker is here, and if we hit this, that means our cycle will be a closed cycle. But if we hit this, then it the cycle will be on a flipped edge. How do I explain it? Yeah, so whatever. We'll put the sticker that's supposed to be an FU in UR, and then that goes to there. This goes back to there, and we know that the cycle's closed because that's where we put the actual buffer sticker. And we're able to float to UL, boom, 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 and I guess since that was only 3 comms, I'd probably do the rest with letters, but you would be able to visual this UL float to save time if that actually crossed my mind. So then you go through edges. Okay. One more, Scramble 9, or one more at least for this topic. I may have twisted a corner. Let me just check quickly. No. Okay. Corners here, here, here. Okay, now I can actually remember that where my buffer sticker is in corners at least, because I landed on this on the first target and I have to cycle break it. So I'll put it in UBR. I remember that the actual buffer sticker in corners is on UBR, and I'm only able to do this because I landed on it. If I landed on the red one, then I'd kind of be screwed because I didn't find a way again. So I gotta talk about. So we go there, and then we have to go here, and we know the buffer or the sticker. No, the buffer is gonna be twisted in place, and we'll have to break somewhere else. So I go here, here, and then end it with here, and there'll be a nice cancellation there. Okay, edges. I'll shoot this here because that's fast. And yeah, that's the buffer. And we remember that the buffer sticker is in the LU. There. And then let me just see what I wrote. Yeah, this is an example of when not to float, because we put the buffer sticker here, but then we hit this. So then you don't want to be floating. In I'd say 90% of cases, you don't want to be floating when your buffer's flipped, because often doing UF columns will just be faster. Although if you have something like a 4 mover and then you want to do the UF flip separately, that sometimes works, but I think that's more for another video. Anyway, we hit here. We don't want to float that, so I'd go probably UR here and then there. Okay, so I do this, and I may be able to visual. Yeah. Okay, so I wouldn't. Sorry, I'm stumbling a lot here, but I would be able to just visual this 2E at the end without having to memorize IAJA in my case. So here, where did that go again? Okay. Oh, wrong column. Wrong com, not to be confused with rom-com. Okay, good. Nice cancel, and then nice cancel again, and I think I left the piece flipped. No, I didn't. Good. Now, that was knowing when to float and when not to float, although this technique can be also used to determine what pieces are flipped. So, for example, number 10, you can use this technique to, I said what pieces are flipped, but deducing flips, I guess, would be the better term for it. In corners, we have here, 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 and that's a 2C, 2C, although I think with the fact that there was only 2 corner columns, I may not move on to edges right away, because sometimes you could get screwed with like a, I don't know. It's just something. My spider senses were tingling, and I didn't feel like just visualing the 2e2e right away. But in the end, I think it would have been faster. Corners here, 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 here. And then I'm gonna put this here in RU because that's fast. And we remember the buffer stickers in RU. We go here and we end up hitting the non-buffer sticker, and it's like we're at the end of the tracing, but there's still, you hit the wrong side. So there's a flipped edge somewhere. And if you're keeping track mentally of where all the pieces are, you will know that this is the one that's left. And let's say I was, like, it's pretty easy to see this when it's not DB or in the back somewhere. But let's just say I was oblivious to this. I would be able to deduce that it was that at the end. Put on the blindfold, not worry about it, and just break into it or something. So I would do that. But often, like I said, DB is the one where you can deduce it the most, and it works the best because you're saving the most amount of time. You don't have to do this. Okay. You don't have to check if DB is flipped, essentially, because you're deducing that you're deducing if it is or it isn't. And I broke into the flip there, as you saw. Now corners. I have one deducing a floating 2 flip. I'll do that. So Scramble 11, but I might speed through this one. So we have M here, here, break here, there, and then have this as the last target. So I'm going to swap UFUR here to here, here to here, here to here. We still haven't hit the buffer. So then I would go here, and I've kept track. This is like I was talking about the an intuition for cycle breaks, and I was keeping track of where what pieces I'm solving. So solving this one, this one, this one, this one, and then this one. And then so usually I go, to one of these U-face ones, but since we've solved all that right away, for some reason I got the intuition just to go here because that's righty and it's fast. Maybe there's another faster one, but this one seems good to me. And I remember that the buffer sticker is here, and no, the wrong sticker is here, so the buffer sticker is here. And if we hit that, then there's going to be either end of the cycle or floating 2 flip. So we do hit that. We hit the right one, but there's only 4 comms, and when you pick up a cube, and you can usually tell if it's like a good scramble, like a 4-alec edge scramble, or if it's a shit scramble. And this one looks like a shit scramble because, well, this wasn't solved. So I knew that those 2 would be solved flipped without necessarily looking at them. So I don't know why I'm doing corners. Let me do edges first. Let me undo absolutely everything I did because I lied about it. Okay, whatever. Usually I do flips at the beginning because for regrips and stuff, and it just gets it out of the way so you don't have to think about it. Moving on. And that's edges. And then corners. Okay, good. Now I have to talk about keeping track of pieces you've solved during memo. So a lot of people do this when starting out. They do this by keeping their fingers on it, but as you get faster, you gain an intuition for this, and eventually you don't have to use your fingers anymore. But this is something you really have to master and have a mental image, because not only you can know what cycle breaks to do and you'll get that intuition, but also you'll be able to pair this with the deducing thing to save a lot of time. But that's kind of the main point of this entire video, so I'll talk about that a bit later. But that's why I'm showing just how to keep track of the pieces you solved, even though you might already know. So this is Scramble 12. We have here, 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 and then I'd probably break here. Okay, that's corners. Now, so this looks like a good scramble, because this is solved and there's no parity. So after memoing these 4 columns, I know that this will be the buffer back here because the last column has to be this because this is solved and I haven't gotten the cycle break yet. So that has to be the last column and I don't even have to look. And this is the, I guess, the equivalent of two color recognition in corners, but I guess 1 color recognition in edges because I know this will be orange, and it is. And because I don't have to look back here, and because I kept track of what pieces were solved, and just knowing that that would end the cycle, I don't have to look back to make sure it will. I know it will, and I'm able to put it on the blindfold and save time because I'm not rotating back there, and I'm also saving a letter pair, but we'll talk about that. So go through this, right? Oh, I did the wrong one. Okay. One more example, 13. This as parity. Not too hard of a scramble. I mean, for corners at least. I haven't seen edges. I'm going through, and then yeah, here. I had solved. This is another example of the 1 color edge, I guess, thing. Is that I had solved the rest of the red pieces, and I had kept track of that with my visual thing. So I know this is going to be. I know this has to go here because this is like the pseudo UR. But then also I know that this has to be the last column, and then this will be the buffer. So I don't have to look at DB. And again, you don't have to do this stupid rotation at the end, so you'll be saving time. Don't bully me for my columns. I may be doing weird columns, sorry. And corners. I think this is right. Yeah, okay, good. So, pairing these 2 things, keeping track of pieces you've solved, and keeping track of your buffer orientation thing will allow you to deduce the last pair of the solve most of the time. And then this turns like 6, and when you deduce it, you can put the blindfold on right away. As soon as you're able to deduce it, you put the blindfold on. And I think this is where a lot of time save goes, because you don't have to rotate to see things, or not rotate, but you don't have to tilt to see the last pair. Also, you don't have to, it doesn't take up space in your mind. You don't have to say the pair out loud because you're just, I guess you're visualing it in this case. Or if you're having trouble visualing it, I guess you can say the pair, but just not look back. That's the most important part. And then after, you slowly incorporate the visual part, because that will also be a big time save. And I think if you have to take one thing away from this video, this deduction method is super important, and it would be this. Because you don't have to look at the last 2 pieces, and that's huge. If you hit this and you know, like let's say you hit something like here and it has, and your last column is RF there, you don't have to look, say, oh, does this go here, this goes here. No, you just see this, put on the blindfold. That's big rotation, big tilt you're saving. So I'll go over, I guess, 6 examples for this. I may have gone a bit overboard, but we're going with example 14 because I want this to be clear. Corners. 4 Alex, nothing complicated. Corners, or I guess, let me just check something. Yeah, okay. For edges, you go here, 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 and then since there's no, yeah, okay, so yeah, so we'll float on that. We'll go to DF. From here, you go here, and I guess this is more of the deducing a 2E thing, but let's say in this case you shoot here, and then you can deduce that the BD FR will be the last column. And that's, yeah. So let's say you don't see it's a 2E. you actually do this letter pair, but then you say, okay, well, my DF buffer's here. This will have to go back there and come back. You don't have to look at it. And I don't know if people already do this, but I think it's important in this case. And I would do the DF columns right away because there are only 2. Right, and then okay, well, I fucked up somewhere. It is what it is. Oh, because I did D prime instead of D in the first DF column. But you get the point. On to Scramble 15. For corner columns, and then on to edges, here to here, here to here, here. This is a buffer. I think I would put it either here or here. Either way, it doesn't really matter. I'll put it here because that's theoretically what I should be doing. So we go here, and you just remember that the buffer is twist or flipped here. Oh wait, sorry. The buffer is buffer is the wrong piece is here, so the right piece is here. Yeah, so you go there, you go here to here, here to there, and then I think I messed up somewhere. Let me re-go over this. Yeah, sorry. So you go here to here. You go, okay, here. And then the last column, you're not saving as much on tilt here, but you know that you don't have to go here and look where does this go. Because you know from here, it has to be the last column because everything else is solved. This has to be the last column you do, so you can put on the blindfold and just go ahead with that and visual the pair. And you have that as last column. Perfect. $16. This is the parity target. So UFUR swap. Here to here, here. This is the pseudo buffer. So I'll put this in UR, and you remember that the right piece or the right buffer sticker will be on RU. So here to here, here to here, and then sorry, 1 second. Yeah. So you go here to here, and then sorry, I'm losing myself a bit. You concentrate. We go here, and then you don't even have to look at the last sticker because you know it'll be you solved everything else, and you know this will be here to here. So you can put on the blindfold as soon as you memorize this. Too much talking today. I can't focus. One more example from what I call simple examples, I guess. Example 17. We're gonna put UFL here. That's the end of the cycle. Go to edges here. And then you have to choose, I guess, a cycle break for this, and I'm gonna go dB because that's fast. And then I guess what you could do here is see this will go to BL, and if you want to save a tilt, you see that this is white, and then you know that the last column will be, maybe I'm doing a bit too much mental gymnastics here, but you know the last column will be a here to here. And then you don't have to actually tilt to BL to see what it is, but I'm not sure what I would do. Either way, if you tilt to BL, you can put on the blindfold and know that the last column is this, or you can just see this, memorize whatever the letters are, put on the blindfold right away. you're saving a tilt, I guess 2 tilts in that case. So it's very good. And then, so I don't know why I'm doing corners. I'm gonna go through edges. Right. Yay. And then, good. Now I have more examples, number 18, but I've labeled this as advanced. I just don't remember why I labeled this as advanced, but we'll see. This goes to here. This goes to here, 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 here. I'll break here and then do LUB parity, so UF-UR swap. And I remember that I put my buffer sticker in the UR spot and I hit it again, so I know I could float. So float here to UB. Okay, this is a, I guess this isn't a last column deduction thing, but it's a 2E2E. I guess I put advanced because there's so much floating and shit. So this is a 2E2E at the end with UB, and you'd put on the blindfold right away because you don't have to memorize the swap thing. And I would go through with it. So there, 2, 3, 4, and then you can cancel nicely into it. But I would go BL to BD because that's fast, and then just do the rest. But that I would decide that in exec and not in MO. And I may have twisted a corner. Okay, I did twist the corner somewhere in there, but it doesn't matter. One more. Here, 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 here. Okay, this is a good example of corners of me just going onto edges right away. I see that I have this and then I have this twist. So instead of memorizing whatever, I just remember that this like blue is facing me or that this white is facing to the left. Either way, you're not using up letter pairs and you're just using visual memo. And I think at the end of the day, it's going to be about using visual memo to replace as much audio memo as possible, or as many letter pairs as possible, because that's what will speed you up, as well as things like all the other tracing things and my other points I said today. But yeah, the main trade-off is like visual memo for audio memo, and that will make you faster. So I don't know why I'm doing corners. My brain. Okay. MJ here. I remember I'm putting, oh no, that's the buffer sticker is the other one. Okay. Oh, okay. The reason I saved this one is because the last column is, I remember I solved everything except these 3 pieces, and the last column goes here to here, but there's this flip. So I don't have to look back because I know this one will be flipped when I get to it. And if I do look back, and let's say I'm oblivious to this, I'll be able to deduce this flip. But since this flip is there, I'm able to know that this buffer will be flipped, and I don't have to look back there. And I'm able to just know to break into the flip right away. So this is a bit more of a rare example though, because the flip is in the front here and you see it. But so I do this, I'd break into it that way. And then corners, everything matter a bit less. Oh, and then for this, I know, I think there's an LTCT for this. I know the one that goes like this, but I don't know this one. So I'd probably just do this, and then it has a nice cancellation anyway. So it may be hard to remember the last pair visually, and like sacrificing a letter pair, but with time it'll get a lot easier, and you'll get a lot faster in memo too. And I think it's an important skill to do, because it'll shave off quite a bit of time on your memo, like probably 0.5 to 1 second. Sorry for cutting off a bit spontaneously. I went on talking about absolute nonsense for like 10 minutes. But thank you for watching. If you made it to this point, if you watched the entire thing, if you watched part of it, thank you. It means a lot to me. I spent a lot of time doing this. It's a lot of fun though. I liked talking about just 3 blind for an hour and 20 minutes. I may do this about exec, or I may do this about, I don't know, 4 blind, 5 blind, multi-blind. Who knows in the future. Depends when I have time and what I feel like talking about. But in the end, thank you. If you have comments or disagree with anything, or, you know, would approach something differently, let me know. And I'd be happy to answer and give my thoughts.